There is a kind of man women rarely forget, not because he is the loudest, not because he has the most money, and not because he knows how to manipulate women. It is because he can walk away. He can care deeply about you and still leave when he realizes he is no longer respected. He can love you without begging you to love him back. And that creates something strangely powerful. Because when a woman realizes a man is emotionally attached to her, but not dependent on her, something inside her changes. She knows she cannot control him with distance, silence, or the fear of losing her. And that uncertainty can be incredibly magnetic. But here's the part most men misunderstand. The power is not in pretending to leave. It is in genuinely becoming a man who has the courage to walk away from anything that costs him his dignity. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Magnetic Masculinity channel. In this video, we'll uncover why that mindset creates such powerful masculine attraction, and what happens when a man finally stops being afraid of losing someone. Now let's get started. Part 1. The man who is not afraid to lose. There is a difference between a man who can walk away and a man who constantly threatens to. One comes from strength, the other comes from insecurity. A truly confident man doesn't announce his boundaries every 5 minutes. He doesn't say, "I'm leaving," hoping she will panic and beg him to stay. He simply knows where he stands. And when something repeatedly violates his values, he doesn't need to create a dramatic scene. He walks away. That quiet decision can be far more powerful than any argument, because most people become attached to what they believe they can never lose. When your attention is guaranteed, your presence can slowly become ordinary. When your approval is guaranteed, your validation loses its meaning. But when someone realizes that you have your own standards and that you are willing to leave when those standards are repeatedly ignored, they begin to understand something important. Your presence is a choice, not a necessity. This is where many men make a painful mistake. They become so afraid of losing a woman that they start accepting things they would normally never tolerate. They forgive the same disrespect again and again. They chase after someone who keeps pulling away. They stay available to someone who only appears when it is convenient, and eventually they wonder why the attraction disappeared. But attraction cannot survive forever when one person becomes completely dependent on the other. A man who has no ability to walk away communicates without saying a word. "I need you more than I respect myself." And that is not love. That is fear. The man who can walk away understands something different. He knows that losing someone can hurt without destroying him. He knows that rejection can wound his heart without defining his identity. He knows that loneliness is uncomfortable, but living without dignity is far more expensive. So he doesn't cling. He doesn't manipulate. He doesn't become cold. He simply remains grounded. He gives love, but he also gives himself permission to leave when love becomes one-sided. And ironically, that freedom is what makes his presence feel more valuable. Because when a man stays, you know he stays because he wants to, not because he is afraid to be alone. And there is a profound difference between those two things. One creates attachment, the other creates respect. And once you understand that difference, you will begin to see why the ability to walk away can become one of the most powerful forms of masculine attraction. Part 2. Why your ability to walk away changes the dynamic. There is something people rarely admit about attraction. We value freedom more than possession. When someone knows they can control your attention whenever they want, your attention slowly becomes less meaningful. But when they realize your presence is voluntary, something changes. She begins to understand that you are not standing beside her because you are afraid of being alone. You are there because you genuinely choose to be. And that distinction can completely change the emotional dynamic. Imagine a man who responds instantly to every message, rearranges his entire schedule whenever she wants him, forgives every broken promise, and keeps pursuing even when she gives almost nothing back. At first, his effort might feel romantic, but over time, it becomes expected. Then something dangerous happens. What was once special becomes normal. She doesn't necessarily stop caring about him. She simply stops feeling the weight of his presence because there is no possibility of losing it. Now imagine a different man. He is warm. He is attentive. He communicates honestly. But he also has a life outside the relationship. He has responsibilities, friends, goals, standards. And when someone repeatedly disrespects him, he doesn't argue endlessly. He steps back, not to punish, not to make her chase him, but because his peace matters. That man creates a completely different emotional experience. She knows that being close to him is meaningful, but not guaranteed. And this is where the idea of masculine attraction becomes much deeper than appearance or confidence. It becomes about self-possession. A man who possesses himself cannot easily be controlled by fear. He doesn't need to win every argument. He doesn't need to prove that he is desirable. He doesn't need to compete for attention. He knows who he is. And because he knows who he is, he can give affection without becoming desperate for affection in return. But there is an important warning here. Never use the ability to walk away as a psychological weapon. Don't disappear to make her anxious. Don't create jealousy just to test her. Don't pretend to be indifferent when you are actually desperate for a reaction. That isn't strength. That's manipulation wearing the clothes of confidence. Real strength is much quieter. It says, I care about you, but I will not sacrifice my dignity to keep you. And when you genuinely live that way, you stop trying to create attraction. You become attractive through the way you carry yourself. Because the most powerful thing about a man who can walk away isn't that he might leave. It's that he doesn't need to threaten leaving to be respected. His life already has direction. His identity already has weight. And his peace doesn't depend on whether someone chooses to stay. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have because you were afraid of losing someone? If the answer is yes, you're not alone. Take a moment and share your experience in the comments below. You don't have to reveal anything personal. Just tell us what you learned from that experience. Your perspective might help someone else who is going through the same thing right now. And if you're enjoying this video, finding value in these ideas, and want more content about masculine strength, self-respect, relationships, and the psychology of attraction, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep creating deeper, more meaningful content that can genuinely make a difference in your life. Now, let's continue. Part 3. When you stop being afraid of losing her. The moment a man stops being afraid of losing a woman, something inside him becomes quieter. He no longer enters every conversation wondering how she will react. He no longer measures every word. He no longer feels the need to prove that he is worthy of her attention. And strangely enough, that is often when his presence becomes more powerful. Because fear has a certain smell. You may never say, I'm terrified you'll leave me. But it can still appear in the way you behave. You tolerate things you shouldn't. You apologize when you did nothing wrong. You constantly seek reassurance. You become jealous of every man who gets her attention. You check your phone repeatedly. You try harder whenever she becomes distant. And underneath all of it is one hidden thought. What if she leaves? That fear can slowly destroy a man's sense of self. Because when losing someone becomes more frightening than losing yourself, you begin making terrible compromises. You stop asking whether the relationship is good for you. You only ask how to keep it alive. But imagine what happens when that fear disappears. You still care. You still love. You still hope the relationship works. But you are no longer desperate. If she needs space, you give it. If she disagrees with you, you don't panic. If someone else gives her attention, you don't immediately feel threatened. And if she ultimately decides that she doesn't want to be with you, you allow her to make that choice. It will hurt. Of course it will. A strong man isn't a man who feels nothing. He is a man who can feel deeply without allowing his emotions to destroy his principles. That is the difference. You don't become emotionally detached. You become emotionally grounded. And when a woman senses that you are capable of walking away without hatred, something becomes clear. You are not holding on to her because you need someone to complete you. You are choosing her because you genuinely value her. That creates a completely different kind of connection. Because healthy love requires freedom. Two people should be able to say, I want you in my life, but I will not imprison you, and I will not imprison myself. That is where respect grows. Not from fear, not from control, not from manipulation, but from knowing that both people are free to stay and both people are free to leave. So don't practice walking away just to make her chase you. Practice becoming the kind of man who knows when staying is love and when leaving is self-respect. Because once you stop being afraid of losing someone, you finally become capable of loving them without losing yourself. Part 4. The difference between walking away and running away. There is a difference between walking away from something and running away from it. A weak man runs because he is afraid. A strong man walks away because he has clarity. That distinction matters. Sometimes a man hears advice like, "Know your worth, walk away," and he turns it into an excuse to leave the moment things become uncomfortable. She disagrees with him. He leaves. She needs time. He disappears. They have an argument. He says, "I'm done." But that isn't strength. That's avoidance. Real masculine strength isn't about leaving at the first sign of difficulty. It is about knowing what deserves patience and what deserves a boundary. Every relationship will have misunderstandings. Every woman will disappoint you sometimes. Every man will make mistakes. And if you expect perfection, you will spend your entire life walking away from people who could have grown with you. A mature man doesn't abandon someone simply because things become difficult. He communicates. He listens. He explains. He gives the other person an opportunity to understand. But there is a point where communication becomes repetition. You have explained the problem. You have expressed how you feel. You have given opportunities for change, and nothing changes. That is when walking away becomes different. You are no longer escaping discomfort. You are responding to a pattern. And patterns tell you more than promises ever will. If someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, you don't need to keep delivering speeches about your value. If someone repeatedly lies, you don't need to become a detective. If someone continually makes you feel unwanted, you don't need to compete for their affection. At some point, you simply accept what their actions are telling you. And acceptance can be painful, because sometimes the hardest thing isn't realizing that someone doesn't love you. It's realizing that you have been hoping their behavior would eventually become different. Walking away means releasing that hope. Not with anger, not with revenge, not with the intention of making them regret losing you. You walk away because you understand that staying in a place where your dignity is constantly compromised will slowly change who you become. And that is the real danger. You may lose the relationship, but if you stay too long in the wrong relationship, you can lose your confidence, your peace, your identity, and your belief in yourself. So before you walk away, ask yourself 3 questions. Have I communicated clearly? Has there been genuine effort to change? Is staying costing me my self-respect? If you can answer those honestly, your decision becomes much clearer. Because a man who can walk away doesn't leave because he doesn't care. Sometimes he leaves precisely because he finally understands that caring about someone should never require destroying himself. Part 5. The man who knows he will be okay. Perhaps the most powerful thing about a man who can walk away is not that he is willing to leave. It is that, deep inside, he knows he will be okay if he does. That is the foundation of real masculine strength. Because when you believe you cannot survive without someone, you become terrified of losing them. You tolerate too much. You negotiate against yourself. You become afraid to speak honestly because the truth might push them away. But when you know you can stand on your own, everything changes. You can love without clinging. You can give without keeping score. You can be vulnerable without becoming dependent. And you can say goodbye when the relationship no longer allows you to be the man you want to become. This doesn't mean you stop needing people. Human beings need connection. We need love, friendship, intimacy, and belonging. But there is a difference between needing connection and needing one specific person to validate your existence. The first is human, the second is dangerous. A man who knows he will be okay doesn't wake up every morning trying to prove that he is desirable. He doesn't compete with every man around her. He doesn't obsess over whether she is thinking about him. He doesn't turn every disagreement into a battle for control. He simply lives. He works towards something. He takes care of his body. He protects his peace. He develops his character. He spends time with people who genuinely care about him. And slowly, his life becomes bigger than one relationship. That is when love becomes healthier. Because now, if she stays, she adds something beautiful to his life. But she is not his entire life. And if she leaves, there will be pain, but there will also still be a future. That mindset creates a quiet confidence that cannot be faked for long. You don't have to tell people that you know your worth. They can see it in the way you behave. You don't have to threaten to leave. Your boundaries speak for you. You don't have to pretend you don't care. You can care deeply while still choosing yourself. And perhaps this is the real meaning behind the phrase, a man who can walk away. It isn't about becoming difficult to keep. It isn't about making a woman afraid. It isn't about creating emotional uncertainty. It is about becoming so grounded in who you are that you no longer need to betray yourself to keep someone beside you. So if she chooses you, love her well. If she needs space, respect it. If problems arise, communicate. But if the relationship repeatedly demands that you sacrifice your dignity just to remain in it, remember, you are allowed to leave. Not because you stopped loving her, but because you finally learned that loving someone should never require you to stop loving yourself. And that is the kind of strength no one can take away from you. Conclusion. The most powerful man is not the one who makes a woman afraid of losing him. It is the man who is no longer afraid of losing himself. The deepest lesson is simple. Love someone deeply, but never abandon your dignity to keep them. In your life today, stop chasing validation. Build your own purpose. Protect your peace. Set clear boundaries. Give people the freedom to choose you, but never beg them to stay. If someone respects you, meet them with love. If they make mistakes, communicate. But if disrespect becomes a pattern and your self-respect is constantly being sacrificed, have the courage to walk away. You don't need to become cold. You need to become strong enough to remain yourself. Because real masculine attraction doesn't come from making someone fear losing you. It comes from becoming a man who knows, I can love you and still be okay without you. If this message helped you, subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating deeper and more meaningful content for you. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.